Welcome back to part 3 of our October series on fanservice horror. So far, we've fought zombies in bikinis and been haunted by creepy waifu ghosts, but this week, things get personal. Psychological horror doesn't just scare you, it lingers. These are games that crawl inside your head, warp your sense of reality, and then, just when you're at your most vulnerable, they hit you with fanservice that feels oh so wrong. It's unsettling, it's confusing, and it's exactly why these games stick with you long after you put down the controller. So buckle up, because today we're diving into twisted minds, disturbing waifus, and the kind of horror that makes you question not just the characters, but yourself. Let's dive in. Let's start with a game that has a reputation so twisted, it feels like it shouldn't even exist. Saya no Yuta, or Song of Saya. This is a visual novel written by Gen Urobuchi. Yeah, the guy famous for turning magical girls into psychological trauma. The story follows Fuminori, a man who survives a brain injury, but now perceives the world as a rotting, gore-soaked hellscape. Buildings drip like entrails, food tastes like filth, and people look like horrific piles of meat. The only exception? A mysterious woman named Saya, who to him appears beautiful. To everyone else, she's a writhing, Lovecraftian abomination. Saya looks like a traditional anime heroine, soft voice, vulnerable design, with plenty of suggestive moments. But the entire time, you're painfully aware that what you're seeing isn't real. It's one of the most effective psychological horror games ever made, precisely because it blends tender romance tropes with straight-up body horror. If you've got the stomach for it, it's worth experiencing, but fair warning, this one will stay with you, whether you want it to or not. Next up, we've got a game that didn't just contain the scares within the game. I'm talking, of course, about Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem on the GameCube, one of the most unique psychological horror games ever made. It sorta looks like a Lovecraftian Resident Evil clone, with ancient evil gods, a cursed tome, and a bunch of unlucky characters throughout history getting wrapped up in the madness. But that only scratches the surface. The real star is the sanity meter. Instead of just showing you how much health or magic you had, it tracked how much your character's mind was breaking down. And when it got too low, things would get weird. Your TV volume would suddenly drop. It looked like the TV would switch inputs. You'd get a fake controller unplugged message, or even a blue screen of death. It was one of the first really good examples of fourth wall breaking horror. And honestly, some of these sanity effects hit harder than any jump scare. Now, in terms of fanservice, the game never goes full cheesecake, but it definitely leaned into early 2000s fashion, which, let's just say, left an impression on a lot of players. Gameplay-wise, Eternal Darkness holds up surprisingly well. You get a mix of exploration, puzzle solving, and combat across different time periods, from ancient Rome to modern America. It's still one of the most ambitious horror games ever made, and the fact that Nintendo published it, of all companies, just makes it feel even more surreal. Okay, next is a game that's legendary for luring people in with big anime eyes and pastel colors, only to emotionally scar them for life. I'm talking, of course, about Doki Literature Club. On the surface, it looks like your standard free-to-play visual novel. You join the high school literature club, surrounded by 4 charming girls, and spend your time writing poems and awkwardly flirting. It's so sugary sweet at the start that you might think you accidentally downloaded the wrong game. But then, the cracks start to show. Without spoiling too much, Doki slowly morphs from a cute dating sim into one of the most disturbing psychological horror experiences out there. And it doesn't just mess with the characters, it messes with you. Save files start acting weird, dialogue breaks the fourth wall, and the game itself seems fully aware that you're sitting there, clicking your mouse, wondering why you're sweating bullets over an anime girl's smile. Now on the fanservice side, let's be real, the game knows exactly what it's doing. The girls are designed to hit every waifu archetype. The contrast between the bright, colorful anime aesthetic and the creepy sense of dread is what makes Doki Doki so effective. It's like being handed a cupcake only to find a razor blade baked into the frosting. And that's why it's so unforgettable. If Doki Doki Literature Club shattered your trust in cutesy waifus with its meta-horror gut punch, the house in Fata Morgana takes the same idea of romance turned nightmare, but dresses it in gothic lace and tragedy. You wake up in a cursed mansion, greeted by a pale, elegant maid who guide you through centuries of the building's bloody history. You already know it's not going to end well, but you can't help but follow her deeper. Each door opens to a story of passion and ruin, love twisted by obsession, loyalty broken by cruelty, beauty slowly rotting into despair. The horror here isn't in monsters or sudden scares, but in watching how human weakness and cruelty keep repeating across time, like the mansion itself is stuck in a cursed loop. On the fanservice side, it's not about skimpy costumes or cheeky camera angles. Instead, it's the allure of the characters themselves. The maid is less a character and more a temptation, pulling you in with her elegance and mystery, while the heroines are framed as beautiful, broken souls you desperately want to save, even as the mansion makes sure you can't. I won't say any more because you got to experience the story for yourself. This is horror dressed in lace and longing, the kind that whispers sweetly as it breaks your heart and makes you come back over and over again. Death End Request looks like a typical anime JRPG. Cute heroines, turn-based battles, and plenty of character tropes you've seen before. But then the game starts glitching, the story fractures, and suddenly you're knee-deep in existential horror. The setup is brilliant. A game developer is trapped inside her own unfinished MMO, and every bug, every broken system, every error becomes a literal monster. What starts off colorful and tropey quickly spirals into a grotesque mash of corrupted code, brutal deaths, and body horror. The character designs lean hard into the usual anime archetypes, skimpy outfits, big eyes, the works. But the real hook is how it lures you in with that familiarity before completely warping it. Those same characters you thought were eye candy, you'll watch them glitch apart, suffer unimaginable fates, or shatter your expectations in ways that make you rethink why you found them appealing in the first place. It's clever, it's meta, and it's one of the few games that manages to make both corrupted game file and a seductive anime heroine equally terrifying.
I think he's carrying
Death End Request may lull you in with a false sense of safety before pulling the rug, but Merry Skelter Nightmares wastes no time making you uncomfortable. The game conveys its psychological horror through its oppressive setting, disturbing narrative, and gameplay mechanics that reflect a decaying mental state. Merry Skelter explores themes of sanity, control, and the corrupting nature of trauma within its nasty, fairy tale-inspired world. In battle, blood splatters across your team of blood maidens, slowly driving them toward blood Skelter mode. It's equal parts magical girl transformation and psychotic breakdown, with unsettling laughter and gore replacing the usual sparkles and frills. The game leans hard into anime tropes with its cast, flirty banter, and some very intentional costume designs, but every lighthearted moment makes the horror sting so much harder. You never quite know if you're in the middle of a dark fantasy adventure, or a blood-soaked nightmare you can't wake from. If the last few games blurred the lines between fantasy and nightmare, Observer goes straight for your nervous system. Set in a rain-soaked cyberpunk dystopia, you are Daniel Lazarski, played by the late Rutger Hauer. He's
the bouncer.
No, he's an observer. It's actually in the title. His job? Jack into people's minds to dig through their memories, which sounds cool until you realize most of those minds are fractured beyond repair. The horror is all about being trapped inside someone else's trauma. One second you're walking through a familiar apartment. The next it's melting into impossible corridors, glitching faces, and fragmented whispers that refuse to stop. The world and atmosphere are dark and grimy, like you turned over a rock and all sorts of things crawled out. The sexier moments are always wrapped in sleazy overtones, making everything seem wrong, like you need to clean off the residue it leaves behind. By the end, you're left wondering which is worse, the monsters inside people's heads or the world outside that drove them to such despair. Observer doesn't want to scare you. It wants to crawl under your skin and stay there. And honestly, mission accomplished. And that's our tour through horror games with twisted minds and disturbing waifus. Whether it's anime girls luring you in before turning the knife, gothic tragedies dressed like romances, or cyberpunk nightmares hacking your sanity, these are the kinds of games that leave you thinking about them long after the credits roll. But don't get too comfortable, because next week we're heading into the blood-soaked finale, the brutal, gory, and sometimes absurdly over-the-top side of horror. So make sure you're subscribed, drop a like if you're digging the series, and let me know in the comments which of these psychological horror games got into your head the most. Okay, I'll see you all next week for the finale of fanservice horror games. Happy spooky season.
Hehehehe